Before listen, lock your door.
Subscribe for daily horror story.
First story.
My grandmother used to say, if you hear footsteps behind you and the pines keep walking, don't turn around, don't speak, and never run. I used to think she said it to scare me from wandering too deep into the woods behind our cabin, but I should have listened. I was 24 when I took a solo trip back to the Appalachians, hoping to reconnect with my roots after a hard breakup and a job I'd just quit. My grandmother had passed a few years before, and her old cabin, nestled just beyond Black Balsam Knob, was the only place that ever felt like peace. I packed light, brought my camera, and planned a week of hiking, journaling, and clearing my head. The first 2 days were perfect, cold, but not freezing. Mornings shrouded in mist, afternoons glowing golden through the pines. I hiked familiar trails, made instant coffee on the porch, and felt like a ghost drifting through the land of my childhood. Then I decided to explore a trail. I didn't remember, it wasn't marked. Just a break in the underbrush past an old stone boundary wall. But it felt like a trail-packed earth, boot prints, and what looked like faint signs of an old blaze on a birch tree. I figured it might lead to some old homestead or overlook. That was the morning of day 3. I should have stopped there about 30 minutes in. The trail narrowed and dropped in elevation. Pines grew closer together. The air felt colder, heavier. The birds went quiet, and I started to feel like I was being followed. At first I thought it was just the way sound works in the woods. You move, and something crunches a beat later. Normal. But this wasn't normal. I would stop, and about 3 seconds later, there would be a soft crack of twigs behind me. I called out once, "Hello?" No response. I told myself it was probably a deer, or maybe even an old hunter. Trail someone else was walking. I kept going, but the deeper I walked, the worse it got. The footsteps stayed at the same distance behind me, not close enough to see but always there. Never hurrying, just matching my pace. That's when I remembered my grandmother's words. I actually laughed under my breath, nervous, not amused. But the laugh caught in my throat when I heard something else. Not footsteps, not wind. A low, dragging sound, like something pulling itself just over the leaves. I turned around. There was nothing there. Just empty pines, and a trail that looked narrower now, darker. I stared for too long, expecting something to step out from behind a tree, but nothing. I should have turned back. I know that, but part of me didn't want to admit I was scared, so I kept walking. About 10 minutes later, I came across something that made me stop cold. It was a deer, or what used to be a deer. Its body had been shredded in a way I've never seen in nature. No clean cuts, just mangled meat and snapped legs like it had been slammed against a tree and left there. The eyes were missing. I stared at it for maybe 10 seconds, and then I heard it again, a footstep, then another, close. I turned fast, still nothing. But this time, I swear the trees felt wrong, bent inward. Leaning toward the trail like they were watching me, I started backing away from the deer. Then, I walked faster. Then faster. The sound behind me kept pace. The sun was lower than it should have been. Maybe clouds were rolling in, but everything looked grayer, dimmer. I was half jogging now, trying not to panic. I thought if I could just get back to the start of the trail, I'd be okay. That's when I heard it whisper my name, clear.com, right behind me. I ran. Branches tore my arms. My pack bounced wildly. I dropped my water bottle, didn't care. Something was chasing me, but it wasn't making sounds like a person. It was too fast, too smooth. No panting, no breaking twigs. Just a constant presence right behind me. Then silence. I stopped. Nothing. I turned, and I wish I hated there. About 20 feet down the trail was a figure. It was tall, thin, wrong. It looked almost human, but stretched. No face, just pale skin and sunken black sockets where eyes should have been. Its limbs bent in ways they shouldn't, like a puppet with too many strings, and it was swaying slightly, like it was waiting. I couldn't move. It raised one hand slowly, not to wave, but like it was beckoning. I turned and sprinted. I don't remember how I made it back. At some point, I tripped, rolled down a small ridge, and ended up in a briar patch. I didn't care. I kept crawling until I hit the road and collapsed. A park ranger found me maybe an hour later, shaking and bleeding from a dozen cuts. I told him I'd gotten lost. Didn't mention the thing in the woods, but he looked at me differently when I said which trail I'd wandered off. He said, "That part's not on any map. No one's supposed to go there anymore." When I pressed him, he said the land had been part of an old settlement burned down in the 1920s. People went missing. Some blamed mountain lions. Others whispered about older things. He just said, "Don't go back. That ridge has its own rules." I haven't been back to the cabin since. I don't hike alone anymore. And every now and then, I dream of that figure beckoning me from the tree line. Next time you hear footsteps in the pines, don't turn around, because whatever follows you there might still be walking just behind me.
Second story.
My dad used to say, if you hear whistling in a hollow and you don't see anyone leave, you weren't meant to hear that song. I thought he was just being dramatic, until I heard it myself. It was the summer of 1998. I had just turned 19 and was working with a small trail clearing crew out of Pike County. We handled old, unmaintained logging paths, mostly helping the forest reclaim them or rerouting for safety. It was hard, sweaty work, but it paid cash, and I needed distance from the mess my family was going through back home. That week, our assignment was a forgotten hollow up near Elkhorn City. No real name. The old-timers just called it Whistler's Hollow. I laughed when I first heard that. "Sounds like a ghost story," I said. Our foreman, Benny, didn't laugh. "It is," he replied. "You stay past sundown out here, you'll hear it." He wouldn't say more than that. Just muttered about old warnings and told us to stick together, no matter what. The first 2 days were normal. We cleared brush, chainsawed a few fallen trees, marked dangerous rock slides. The place was beautiful in a wild, forgotten waist-deep ridges. Mist pooling between the trees in the mornings like the land was holding its breath. But on the third day, things started to feel off. It was just me and another guy, Jacob, assigned to mark the southern bend of the trail. We were maybe 2 miles from the rest of the crew. No signal, of course. Just our radios in the dense hush of the forest. Around mid-afternoon, Jacob stopped. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I paused. At first nothing, then yes. A soft, distant whistle. High, clear, and slow, like someone whistling an old tune but wrong. The melody stuttered, repeated, slid off key. It sent goosebumps up my arms, but I tried to play it off. "Could be wind," I said, "or a bird." Jacob shook his head. "Nah, it's a song, like an actual tune, but it ain't right." We listened for another few seconds, but it stopped. That night, back at camp, we asked Benny about it. He went real quiet, then said, "Whatever you do, if you hear it again, answer it. Answer it." I asked. "Don't whistle back," he said. "Don't hum along. Don't mimic it. Just pretend you never heard it." It was enough to spook Jacob. He asked to be reassigned the next morning. I didn't. Maybe I should have. Day 4. I went back into the hollow alone. Not by choice. Another crew had gotten delayed clearing a creek bed, and I offered to go in solo and finish flagging the last stretch. Benny was reluctant, but eventually gave the go-dash ahead. I left just after lunch. The sun was high, but clouds were rolling in. The deeper I got into the hollow, the dimmer it became. The trees grew thicker, almost too thick, like they were trying to block out the sky. And then I heard the whistling again. This time it was closer. It started soft, maybe 50 yards ahead of me, behind a thicket of mountain laurel. Same broken melody off key. Wrong. I froze. A strange urge came over me to respond. Not out of fear, out of something else. Like my brain was slipping sideways. Like a part of me remembered the tune, even though I'd never heard it before. I raised my lips to whistle back, but I stopped myself, just in time. The trees around me felt like they were leaning in, listening. I backed away slowly, marking my trail with flag tape, trying to ignore the rising pressure in my ears. Then the whistling moved. It was now behind me, closer. I didn't run. Not yet. But I walked faster, breathing through my nose to keep quiet. The path twisted, but I didn't remember this bend. The trees had changed, denser now, and darker. I looked back, but the trail I came in on seemed to have vanished. The air smelled wrong, like whetstone and decay. Then I saw the door. It was just standing there in the middle of the woods. A rotted wooden doorframe with no wall around it, leaning slightly, the hinges rusted through. No house, no structure, just a door, and something was standing behind it. I couldn't see it, fully just a shadow. Tall, slender, no face, just darkness where a face should be. But I could feel it watching, and it was whistling. Not the same tune anymore. It was whistling what I had hummed as a kid. An old lullaby my mom used to sing, something no one else should have known. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I turned and ran. Branches whipped my face. Something cut my cheek. I tore through the underbrush, slamming into trunks, nearly falling more than once. Behind me, the whistling kept pace, calm, steady, like it wasn't even trying. Then silence. I stumbled into a clearing and collapsed. My lungs burned. My ears rang. The whistling was gone. The pressure in the air lifted, and I realized something. I wasn't alone. Across the clearing stood 3 people, but they weren't people. Their bodies were too stiff, like they were posing for a photograph. Their skin was pale, almost gray, and their eyes were gone. Just black, empty sockets. Each one had a mouth frozen in a silent whistle. They didn't move. Just stood there, side by side, like dolls waiting to be wound up. I backed away slowly, didn't turn my back, didn't blink. Eventually, I found the flagged trail again, or maybe it found me. I don't remember the walk back. When I got to camp, I was covered in cuts, my shirt torn, one boot missing. Benny didn't ask. He just handed me a bottle of water and said, "You heard it, didn't you?" I nodded. "Did you answer?" "No." "Then you're lucky," he said. "Most don't make it out once it starts mimicking their memories." I quit the job the next morning. I still dream about that tune. Sometimes I wake up humming it and don't know why. A month ago, I heard someone whistling it outside my apartment window. I live in Ohio now, nowhere near the mountains. Next time you hear whistling from deep in the hollow, don't listen. Because if it learns your song, it'll never stop calling you back.
Third story.
My uncle used to say, "Never go near a sinkhole that wasn't there yesterday." I thought he was joking, till one opened up behind Miller's farm. That was in 2003. I was 21, working part-time at a hardware store in a sleepy Tennessee town most folks just pass through on their way to Asheville. Back then, there wasn't much to do besides drink cheap beer and walk the trails around the abandoned Miller property. The place had been empty since the 80s. The story went that the Millers left one night and never came back, left food on the table, lights on, the whole cliché. No one ever figured out why, and no one ever bothered fixing the house up. The roof sagged, the porch caved in, and blackberry bramble had swallowed everything else. But it was a local spot for dares and late-night stupidity. One Saturday afternoon, my friend Kenny and I went hiking back there. We weren't trying to be spooky, just killing time, avoiding town. But when we reached the edge of the old cornfield, Kenny stopped walking. "Was that always there?" he asked. About 50 feet out from the tree line, something had opened in the ground. At first I thought it was just a sinkhole, big one, maybe 10 feet across. But when we walked closer, we noticed something strange. There wasn't any debris, no roots, no crumbled dirt. It was clean, like something had scooped the earth out from below without disturbing anything around it. The rim was smooth, not jagged, almost ... intentional, and it wasn't just deep, it was black. Even with the afternoon sun overhead, we couldn't see the bottom. Kenny threw in a rock. We never heard it hit. That's when I remembered what my uncle had said. He'd grown up in these hills, and he was the kind of man who treated folk stories like they were warnings, not entertainment. I joked about it, said maybe we'd found some old mine shaft, but even as I said it, my stomach turned. We left after that, hiked out fast, didn't speak much. But that night, around midnight, Kenny called me. His voice was shaking. "There's something in the hole," he said. I went back. I thought I saw someone down there. He sounded messed up. I told him to stay put, that I'd come over. When I got to his house 20 minutes later, his car was gone. His mom said he'd left without saying where he was going. I knew where. I drove straight to the Miller place. By the time I got there, the sun had long set. The field was dead silent. No wind, no bugs, just a sick feeling pressing down on me. The sinkhole was still there, but now there were footprints leading up to it. Kenny's boots. No return prints. I yelled his name. No response. Then I noticed something new. The hole wasn't silent anymore. There was a voice, low, muted, like someone speaking underwater. I couldn't make out the words, but it was rhythmic, repetitive, and the air around the sinkhole was vibrating, barely noticeable, like heat off asphalt. My skin prickled. I backed away, ran home, called the sheriff the next morning. They sent out a search party, said there were no signs of foul play, but they couldn't explain the hole, or how deep it went. By day 3, they brought in some geologists. I overheard one of them say, "It's not a sinkhole, it's hollow, deeper than we can measure." They never found Kenny. The hole was eventually fenced off and sealed with concrete, but not filled. They just poured a slab over it, like a coffin. For a while, I convinced myself he fell, that it was just an accident. But then the dreams started, and every one, I'm back in that field, standing at the edge of the hole, and from deep inside, Kenny's voice rises up, calling my name, not screaming, just saying it, over and over, like he's still falling. Sometimes I wake up to the sound of his voice outside my window, and here's the worst part. 2 months ago, that slab of concrete cracked open clean, like something underneath had pushed it apart. No one talks about it. The town council put up a new fence, but last week, someone spray painted on it. It's still hungry. I don't go near that part of town anymore. I've thought about moving, but it feels like the sound follows me. I hear it in drains, in vents, in dreams. Next time you find a sinkhole that wasn't there yesterday, walk away. Because some holes in Appalachia don't go down, they reach up, and they pull back.